Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse Witch, and for this week's secondary video, let us talk about offerings, because that is something I get asked a lot in the comment section. People seem to be a little bit confused or unsure, so I thought I would pour all of it into one short video. So questions that we will tackle in this video are, for example, where to give offerings, where to dispose of offerings, and also when to dispose of offerings. What I won't go into in this video is, of course, what to give as an offering, because that is so incredibly dependent on the god or the goddess or the spirit that you are wanting to give an offering to. So of course, yeah, I could tell you can always give water as an offering, but that doesn't really make sense. When it comes to the question of what to give as an offering, research the spirit or the deity in question, or ask them what they would like as an offering and give that. Without further information, I can't tell you what to give someone as an offering. Same thing about when to give an offering. That is so incredibly personal that there is no one way to go down. There's nothing really I can tell you about that. But where to give the offerings, when to dispose of them, and where to dispose of them, because that's usually the biggest question. Let's get into that. First of all, where to give offerings? That seems to be a question that's asked a lot, probably because you see personal altars in people's spaces, in people's houses and apartments all the time. So it seems like everyone is giving offerings just inside on an altar, placing it on the altar, and that's where you can give offerings. But you can give offerings in different places. If you are following a specific tradition or religion, it could be the case that there are some where you definitely have to have an inside altar. I don't know of any, but it's possible. I don't know every single religion and tradition in the world. But usually, from what I know, you do not have to have an inside altar. You don't even have to have an altar outside. If you are interested in that, I have a separate video on altars, so you can check that out here. But you do not necessarily have to have an altar inside where you give the offerings. For example, if you want to give an offering to a deity, for example, I personally know for myself that the times that an offering feels most special is when I give the offering outside. And of course, if you practice a religion or tradition that has actual temples or churches, then of course you can give offerings there. I mean, if you're a Christian, go to a church and give the offering there. Of course, that makes the most sense. But if we're talking about older pagan faiths that are reconstructed and there aren't any temples for these faiths, for example, as a heathen, I don't know of any temples in my area. Would be nice, but there aren't. So what's left basically is either giving an offering inside in my space or outside somewhere in nature. When it comes to giving offerings outside though, please think about what you give as an offering, because there are a lot of things that are very harmful to the environment, to the plants or to the animals. Of course, a very, very common offering is food and drink. But for example, most human foods are not suitable to be just disposed of outside. For example, even bread, and I know people love to feed ducks and other birds with bread. It's actually very, very bad for them. So most human foods are not suitable to be just disposed of outside as an offering. So for example, if you give an offering outside and I don't know, you have cooked a curry or something, don't put that curry outside as an offering, because there will be, if you put it outside in a bowl, animals will come and eat it. And they will probably be hurt by it. They will have at least a tummy ache or something, because there are a lot of spices in our food. It's just not good for animals. And if you give it outside, just on the ground, it's also possible that, of course, It's possible that animals will eat it either way, but it's also possible that it seeps into the ground and it will harm the environment, the plants, the soil. Of course, with things like salt, for example, definitely do not put salt on the ground outside. Please don't. Also, if you want to cast a circle, do not cast a circle with salt outside, please. There are, of course, some things that you can give outside. For example, local vegetables or local fruits, organic ones, so that there is no like pesticides or anything on them. You can give those outside because animals would find them around anywhere. For me, there are a lot of apple trees here. So if I would give an organic apple, no pesticides or anything, would give that offering aside perfectly fine. Water, of course, a totally fine offering. You could even give like liquid fertilizer as an offering. Totally cool offering for like plant spirits and local spirits. But even if you want to give liquid offerings, do your research before you give that offering, because maybe it is something that you should not be pouring on the ground. Even things like coins, for example, usually not the best idea to just put them on the ground, because most coins include a lot of copper, and copper doesn't break down by itself and is actually harmful for animals and plants, for the environment. So whatever offering it is that you want to give outside, do your research beforehand so you know if it's harmful for the environment or not. And if it is harmful for the environment, don't give the offerings outside, or at least give them outside like in a bowl or something and take them with you again. And that is where we come to the topic of disposing of offerings. As I said, one, if you give an offering outside in a bowl or something and you take it with you again when you leave, or if you give an offering inside on your local at-home altar. Let's say you have given, for example, food as an offering, you have it on your altar now, or you have it outside and you want to get rid of it now. If you give like a piece of meat as an offering to a deity, it doesn't just disappear. So how do you dispose of it? First of all, of course, again, that will depend on religion and tradition and stuff. So if there are specifics, do your research in the tradition or the religion that you follow or practice and see whether there is anything specific about that. If not, you can basically do whatever you want. Just make sure that it makes sense. For example, even if we look at heathenry, there are different ways to give offerings, or there were different ways to give offerings. So for example, a lot of offerings were given in bogs and just thrown in there. That is where we get like a lot of archaeological stuff, because it's very well preserved in bogs. So we have, for example, a lot of swords that were thrown into bogs as an offering. But we also have like a typical bloat sacrifice, where you would have an animal that will be sacrificed and the blood will be sprinkled as an offering, but the meat will be eaten. If your tradition or your religion doesn't handle that differently, it is, for example, totally fine to eat food or drink offerings for the deity or spirit in question. Some people really like to do that. They will, for example, cook something nice and they will put it on the altar, but they will eat it. And the thought behind it is that, first of all, you don't waste food or drink. And second of all, the pleasure and the energy that you exude while eating or drinking it, the deity or spirit in question can basically take this energy and feed off of that energy instead of directly off of the physical offering. But some people, of course, like to or prefer to give the offering, for example, even if they would commune and eat and drink with a spirit or a deity, they prefer to give them their own portion of food or drink and leave it on the altar. Totally fine too. You have your portion, you eat it or drink it, and you give one part of it to the deity or spirit in question. But then you have the problem, well, now I have food or drink on my altar, so what do I do with it? Again, it depends. Some people have the options, for example, if it's, again, something that doesn't harm the environment or anything like that, to put it out in nature and dispose of it in nature. That's of course wonderful, because that way you not only give an offering to a deity or a spirit, but you also give the nutrients from that offering as a fertilizer to the earth. So that is great. Some people also have the option to compost their offerings. Also great, because then at some point you can take it and use it as a fertilizer. Perfect. Some people don't have that option. I'm one of those people. There are a lot of people nowadays that don't live like off-grid, but a lot of people live in big cities. And I personally do not feel like it's fitting for an offering to dispose of it in a park. Like, I have a very small park around here, like 1 minute by foot, but there are so many people out there and they behave sometimes very rudely or aggressively. They will take drugs there and stuff. So that is not a place where I would want to dispose of my offerings. And also a lot of the times I give offerings that I wouldn't want to dispose of in nature either way. So what do? That is where your trash bin comes in handy. Because yes, some people do not have a different option. There is no way to dispose of offerings for some people than to put it in the trash. Some people say you shouldn't do that, but honestly, like, how am I supposed to dispose of offerings? If it's harmful for the environment, I will not put it out in nature. So I have to put it in the trash, and that is totally fine. So don't let people tell you that you can't dispose of offerings in the trash. It's fine. Just make sure that you're doing it in a respectful way, so you don't just take it and chuck it in the bin, because that could give spirits and deities the wrong idea of how you're treating their offerings. But just tell them what you're doing. Like, tell them you have had your offering now. I will take it now. I will dispose of it in the trash, but in a respectful way, because this is your offering. I know I just can't dispose of it in a different way. That's it. Perfect. But then comes the last question. When do I dispose of the offerings? Because, for example, with food and drink, it's not like I can leave it there for a month, because of course it will rot, it will go bad. And you don't want that, because that's a health risk. You don't want mold. Definitely don't. What I usually do is I will keep that offering on the altar for a day, or like if I give the offering in the evening or something, I will probably dispose of it either the next morning or somewhere in the course of the next day, so that it doesn't go bad. But that doesn't really have to do anything with the deity or the spirit. That's just because it will become a health risk for you if you let it stay there and mold. So it's not like by disposing of it too early you were being disrespectful to the spirit or the deity. That's not a thing. At least not in any traditions or religions that I know. Again, if there are specifics, tell me about it, because that would be very interesting, because I don't know of any. It might be that there is some religion that says that you have to have your offerings out for at least a week or something. Who knows? You should, in general, try to keep your altar updated and clean either way. So even if it's not an offering that goes bad, but it is like a temporary offering and not a constant one, then you would probably get rid of it pretty fast either way, because you clean your altar and stuff, you remove all the old offerings. Also, like, for example, if you give like incense as an offering, you would probably remove like the remains of the incense, the coal, ashes and stuff, and dispose of that pretty quickly either way, because you want to keep your altar clean. It's only really a big thing for food and drink, but just think logically when it comes to that. But yeah, that was everything that I could at least think of. If you have more tips on offerings, then put them in the comments. As always, patron shout out. Thank you so much to Katie, Thistle, Adam, Kent, Kelly, Lisa, Brittany, Emerceline, Smolkata, Josh, Elinura, David, Kristany, Rixie Business, Valo, Annalena, Bast, Kirby, Ashley, Erica, Anna, Kristen, John, Phoenix, Anton, Jenny, Maggie, Misty, Amy, Colette, Timothy, Coffee, the Honorary Gossip Squirrel, and Bjorn. Of course, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up and ring the bell down below. You can of course check out all of my other socials and my shop for ethically and sustainably witchy and pagan goods, and my Patreon, of course, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!